Happy Sunday. Nice to see you guys. Let's start out on our backs. So finding our way onto our spine, if you want to utilize your prop, feel free, but no need. And let me make sure I have my audio appropriately set up. Yeah, so
Hey
we're
Pat,
just...
your autofocus is messing with you too. So if you're recording it for YouTube, you're going to be out of
Heck
focus
yeah.
at the moment.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. And we'll see if we can settle on that. I've been big on following the breath as it enters the body and then following the breath as it exits the body. And as you're experiencing breath entering and exiting the body, it's kind of two things. You can feel the lung cavity expand, contract. You can feel the lungs be filled and release the breath. There's also the potential to follow the breath as it transitions from the respiratory system into the circulatory system. Can you be so in tune with your body that you can experience that exchange as those oxygen molecules are attached to the blood cells? And then as those blood cells travel and disperse those nutrients throughout your body. Let's give ourselves just about 40 more seconds just to experience the breath, however you're experiencing it this morning. And then when it feels right for you, let's bring our knees into a bed position. So kneecaps point towards the ceiling or sky. And bring your hands to heart center. We'll interlace the fingers. And then just play with the lumbar until you get that into neutral. Lock in the core engagement with the spine at neutral. And then with those fingers interlaced, just extend the arms overhead towards the space behind you, not towards the ceiling or sky. And draw that breath into that high thoracic lat area so that you really feel that lat musculature receive your breath. And then we will exhale and release the arms to cactus and let the bottoms of the feet come together, knees fall out wide. Note that high lateral assist in the external rotation of the shoulders. And think about what you can do to keep the shoulder girdle more neutral against the mat with that extra space. And we'll just give ourselves about 20 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, knees come back to neutral. Let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side you feel most drawn towards. And then we'll press ourselves up into seat. From seat, from staff, legs extend out in front of us. Let's follow that forward into a fold. Settle your way into this little seated forward fold here, reminding, constantly being willing to bend the knees if that makes the shape feel better for you. Feel more expansive for you is a better way to describe that. Right? Looking for what gives us the best ability to expand. Last 45 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll walk ourselves back up into seat, and we're going to transition to hands and knees tabletop. As you set your tabletop, really think about the fingerprint pressure, and we're going to use those fingerprints as anchors to help with some thoracic expansion. So really get your hands in a position that you feel like you can just hold on to. Like this is going to be the spot where my hands stay. And then take your knees maybe like half an inch to an inch further back so we get just a little additional space or a little angle of the femur. And then we'll exhale and sink back into child's pose. Hands stay where they are. And that may mean that you can't get all the way back into that full depth, right? That's okay. We're kind of looking for this upper thoracic expansion. And then we'll inhale and pull forward. And then we'll just transition back. Exhales back, inhales forward, using the hands as the anchor and really thinking about how the kind of bottom of the thoracic shelf is responding to this pull as you set back, which means the pull can't all come from the shoulders. You have to keep that shoulder integrity really active. And then the next time we come forward, we're going to pause there. And from this reestablished tabletop position, exhale out. And as you exhale out, pull the belly button up towards the spine. And we'll hold that belly button up. You can continue to breathe, but hold the belly button up, and then we'll sink back. And then we'll come back forward with an inhale. And now release to your normal breath. And then we'll exhale out. We'll pull the belly button up towards the spine. And this time we'll hold the breath out. So lungs are empty. Belly button's tucked up, lungs are empty. We'll sink back into child's pose. And we're just going to stay back in this child's pose with the breath held out for as long as feels comfortable. When it feels like it's uncomfortable to hold that breath, we'll pull ourselves forward once again. And then we'll curl our toes and find our way back into down dog. And so this down dog will be as active as we're going to get this morning. Just a little lift. You may have some fatigue on that backside of the shoulder structure, so just be aware of that. And then we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll sink our way back into child's pose. And this time you can soften the shoulders so that the child's pose can be more restorative. And the shoulders can be deactive and get into that recovery stage. We'll give ourselves just about 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, slide your right hand underneath heart center. Take your left hand to your left hip, and then slide your right knee halfway between the left knee and the right wrist. And we'll take a nice little rotation up towards that left shoulder, working on that medial line on the right thigh. And then we'll relax back to neutral. Swap this over to the left side. So left hand to heart center. We bring that right hand to the right hip. Left knee comes up halfway between the knee and the hand. And we take that nice rotation. And we'll transition back and extend our legs out in front of us for staff once again. And so now with a little bit more of that lateral space and some rotational space, let's take ourselves forward into fold. Right back into the shape we were just in. So a pretty quick retest of our mobility. We'll give ourselves 60 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll walk ourselves back up in a seat. Let's connect with our blanket towel prop. And we're going to fold that to a block-like approximation. So I'm going hot dog and then over, and then I'll use the folded side across my tailbone. And then we're going to head onto our back so that that can make sense. So on our backs, taking the block-like shape and placing that underneath the tailbone. Setting your weight balance and then allowing the left leg to peel open. Right leg here staying towards that vertical space. If you set this up so that the blanket is too high, your spine just won't respond right. So make sure that the block blanket is just on the sacrum itself, and then you have much more control here. And then we're going to pressurize down into the right foot, maybe like 5 to 10%, so that you get just a little activation across this anterior hip girdle. And see if I can make that look a little more vertical. Yeah, so that right knee is relatively vertical. Maybe this way will be more visually make sense. And so we just open to that left side. Right knee is up, and we just get a little pressure down. This isn't going to be a super long hold because it is a lot of work for a recharge. When it feels appropriate, left knee comes up to mirror the right, and just let your body settle here. So now this supported bridge should feel pretty freeing at that sacral joint where the sacrum and the lumbar unionize. And then when it feels appropriate, we'll let that right leg fall open. Left knee stays with that vertical. We press down into the bottom of the left foot, maybe like 5 to 10%. Not a lot, but enough to change the sensation there. And then when you feel balance left to right, we bring the knees back to neutral. And again, just want that sacral joint to settle into a little bit more mobility. So there's this world-renowned sculpture artist. She's sold these pieces of art for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And because of that, she's become pretty well known. And as she travels around, there's always people waiting to see her exhibits. She turns 40-ish or so. When you're right, when you're ready, let's let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. So now looking for some stability here across the hips into some extra external range. She's made all this money and she decides that she just isn't really enjoying the life in the limelight. She decides she's going to move into this little tiny remote village. And she moves there and she's in this idyllic setting and nobody recognizes her. And she opens up this little art studio and no one even notices the art studio. No one even looks. No one even cares. No one knows that this incredible artist is set up in this little village. And part of her is really happy about that. Part of her recognizes that she wanted this. She wanted the anonymity of normalcy. There's another part of her that's really heartbroken. When you're right, when you're ready, knees come back together. And we'll lift ourselves high enough to slide that blanket out from underneath us for the moment. Let's take the feet out to the width of the mat and let the knees fall in towards one another. Again, kind of playing with this extra sacral joint space that we've offered. Thinking about being really neutral from the lumbar to the sacrum. And the shape itself is an assistant in that, but really see what you can do with your breath and with your core engagement to just be as neutral as can be. And so part of her is a little bit sad because the people of this village don't seem to have the awareness to recognize that there's this incredible art in front of them. They don't seem to have the awareness, furthermore, to recognize this beautiful, serene setting they're in. She notices that the people here just seem constantly sad. She doesn't know why that can be. One day she's just kind of daydreaming, thinking about this. Somebody comes by and they put up a poster in her window. They didn't ask to do this. She kind of hustles outside to look at what this poster could be. And it turns out that it's this yogi she knows who's coming to this village. And she's elated by this idea because she knows this yogi is like a proponent of joy. And so when this yogi comes, she goes and she watches this yogi give her presentation. And there's a handful of the other villagers there, but it's not well attended. We'll bring our hands, so stay where you are lumbar wise, stay where you are knee wise, foot wise, bring your hands together at heart center again, and we'll interlace the fingers. And we're going to exhale out, draw the belly button back towards the spine. As the belly button gets back towards the spine, hold the breath out. And then with the breath held out, belly button back, we're going to extend the arms overhead, not towards the ceiling, but towards the space behind us. And hold that for as long as you can comfortably do so. And then eventually we'll return to our breath. Arms come out towards cactus. The feet will walk back in line with the hips. The bottoms of the feet will come together and the knees will fall out wide. Finding our way back into that external hip rotation. When it feels right, we'll inhale the knees back to neutral. And we're going to roll straight over onto our bellies. So whatever side feels most appropriate to, just roll that direction. And we're headed towards Sphinx. So elbows underneath the shoulders, palms down. Set your shape first, the shape that feels the most comfortable for your low back. And then we're going to lower our forehead as low as we can get it. And then just note this depth and inhale, and we'll take our forehead as up as high as we can comfortably get it without any back compression. And then we'll exhale and lower. Inhale and get that lift without any back compression. And we'll just work through this shape, thinking about using that sacral joint as the hinge here. And that's not where the normal hinge would be, right? The normal hinge would be kind of thoracic centric. Really think about getting into that lift and really thinking about getting into that lowest point so that you can feel that the sacrum itself is moving as a hinge. The next time you release your forehead down, stack your hands for a little crocodile. We'll just release here. So afterwards, this artist, he runs up to the yogi and she says, I'm so glad you're here. This village needs your guidance. Everyone here is so unhappy. There needs to be a revolution. We need these people to change so they can appreciate where they are. And the yogi kind of looks around and she sees the people, and she looks around and she sees this beautiful setting they're in, and she says, okay, meet me in the center of town tomorrow and I'll show you what you need to do. When it feels appropriate for you, we're going to take our right leg out to half frog. So right knee's coming out so that we create roughly a 90-degree bend at the hip and roughly a 90-degree bend at the knee. If you want to use that blanket, you're welcome to slide that underneath the thigh or knee. You don't necessarily need that though. And then we're going to really focus on this off leg, this left leg. So keep that left foot, top of the foot, pressing down like that 5%, 5 to 10% we've worked on earlier. And then really think about how that impacts the glute engagement and how the glute engagement keeps the sacrum nice and neutral, nice and level. And then when you're right, let's extend that. Let's bring that right knee back down so it mirrors the left, and then bend the right knee so the bottom of the foot points straight up. Now, couple of choices here. That right hand can reach back and grab the ankle. You can utilize your towel as kind of a belt, or you can use that left hand to grab the ankle. Either way, we're going to look on a little anterior quad activation. You can also do both hands, right? But forehead comes back down to a relatively neutral space. It can still rest, but relatively neutral. And then choose the appropriate engagement with your hands. And we'll give ourselves just about 30 more seconds here. And eventually we'll release. And we'll take that second side, our left leg, out into our half frog. The top of the right foot's going to press down, and we're going to actively energize that. So 10 to 15%, not enough to create real structural change, but enough to create full activation there. So the next morning, this artist shows up, and the yogi's there at the center of town. And immediately upon arrival, the yogi pulls out this very tattered copper water vessel. And she hands it to the artist, and she says, I need you to go to the edge of town. I need you to scoop this water vessel full of water from the well. And then I need you to bring this back to me without spilling a single drop. And the artist starts to ask a question. The yogi's like, nope, I need you to do this right now. We don't have much time. And so the artist rushes over to the well, and she scoops the water vessel full of water to the very brim. And she very carefully, with both hands guiding, starts to walk back with full concentration and full focus on that water not spilling. Meanwhile, the village is starting to come alive, and people are starting to hustle and move about. They're starting to open their shops. But she's so focused on that water, she doesn't even see them. When you get to the point where you feel balanced left to right, let's extend that left leg so that it mirrors the right, and then we'll bend the left knee. And then we make that same choice, whether we want to grab with the left hand, the right hand, the towel, the extended blanket, or both hands. We get ourselves into a space where we can start to feel that anterior high leg on the left side. About 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll release that left leg so that it mirrors the right. Press down into the tops of both feet, that 5 to 10%, and then extend the arms straight out overhead, like towards the space in front of you. And then we'll relax and roll our way onto our backs. And we'll settle here. The knees just rock a little side to side. Just a little bit of realignment and then come into some stillness where you can appreciate what we've done. And we did kind of an unusual sequence of events today, but really think about how the thoracic spine is responding and how the hip girdle is responding to what we've done as you just settle into this moment of appreciation. And then when it feels right for you, let's one last time let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Last little bit of dual external rotation. I think it's the third time we've been in this shape. Coming into this shape post frog though, right? So now we have some more space. Really think about allowing for the full external rotation of the hips. Last 10 seconds here. And then when it's right, we'll bring our knees together and let them fall over to the left side. Little static rotation here. So through sheer focus, concentration, and awareness, this artist is able to bring this water vessel all the way back to the yogi completely full. She doesn't spill a drop. The yogi takes the water vessel and she says, really, really incredible work. She chugs the water down. And then she looks back at the artist and she says, no, I want you to go back out into the village. And I want you to change the way people are experiencing their morning. Can't touch them. But go out and change the way they're walking, the acts they're doing. And so the artist goes out and she sees this group of people walking to their jobs. And she tries to stop right in front of them and they just split up and they go around her. And then she sees this woman who's watering these flower beds. And there's a bench right where she needs to be next. And she goes and she sits on the bench and the woman just goes around. And then the woman goes back inside and she sees that the watering pot is right there and she takes that and she hides it. The woman just goes back inside. She comes back out with another watering pot. She eventually finds her way to the first. And so no matter how hard this woman is trying, it seems like everything she's doing to disrupt people is just being ignored. It might be a minor inconvenience for someone to step around her, but they're certainly not stopping what they're doing. They're not going to work because she's there. Give ourselves just about 40 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, knees come back to neutral, and we'll let the knees fall over to that second side. As you settle into that second side, really think about how you can tweak and adjust to find that maximum benefit. And then when it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And we'll ask ourselves here if there's any last tweaks or adjustments our body could benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there are, we'll offer those to ourselves now. If you feel like you have everything you need, we'll settle into a shape where we can fully appreciate some stillness. And so this artist eventually gives up. She heads back to the yogi and she says, I'm sorry, but I can't change these people's mornings. And the yogi says, well, maybe you should concentrate on the water. When you're ready for that stillness, just drifting into a way where you are at ease. And so the artist kind of looks back at the yogi. This is focus on the water. What do you mean? We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. And the yogi says, focus on the things you can control. You have a much better chance of making those changes. Movement into your wrists. And the yogi turns and walks away. Elbows, ankles, knees. Shoulders, hips. Neck and head. Jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves. And we utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in back into a seat. Finding a vertical spine, a fluid breath, letting your eyes close. We'll utilize our next inhale to bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that trying to change others is a fool's errand? But having the courage to change yourself is a revolution. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I will be back tomorrow night if you want to move. I love the heck out of you. See you soon. Mwah.